Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelove, and this is Speedplay Netherlands #1. We're starting off as Gelre. We are a one province minor. We are Dutch. And the first thing we're going to need to do is get some local allies, begin fabricating a claim on Utrecht, and try to get Austria onto our side. In the long term, it's going to be very important that we get both Austria and hopefully France to be our allies. If we can maintain alliances with those two major powers, we really won't have anything to worry about, other than the occasional massive coalition war. But if we get them on our sides for those, we won't really have to worry at all. Already we've got our alliance with Austria secure, we've got a few alliances with some local powers, and we're working towards allying with the French. We're probably going to end up being over our diplomatic relations limit, but quite frankly, we need all the allies we can get in the very early game. We declare our war on Utrecht and we begin sieging out their province. They've called in a few allies, so we send some forces over to just deal with their armies. Overall, it looks to be going fairly well, and it is just a rather quick war. Once the battles have all been won, we just work on dividing our forces up to lay siege to all of their lands. This is the first war I've fought in Common Sense, but it seems to be rather straightforward. And with that basically done, their provinces are being sieged out. It is just a matter of time before we win and incorporate as much as possible into our country. Unfortunately, we can't just annex Munster, as our ally did not transfer full control over their provinces to us. However, we can get pretty close. So what we're going to do is just continue sieging out Utrecht, which it should be noticed has an actual fort in it. It'll be the only fort that our country will have, although I may build another one in the lands we're going to seize from Munster. The important thing is, though, that with that fort we will hopefully be safe from Burgundy if they decide to attack us, at least until reinforcements can arrive. And with the siege complete, we begin making peace to just take as much land as possible and really all the other benefits we can get from their allies and then from Utrecht itself. We're also able to humiliate them, which gets our power projection above 50. And now it's basically just going to be us coring all these provinces and watching as the coalition builds. Coalitions in Europe are notoriously harsh, so hopefully with allies in both the Austrians and the French, we'll be able to deal with that relatively easily. We also work towards allying Brandenburg, because they're probably going to do well in the late game. I unfortunately don't notice that they're under attack, and immediately they call us to arms. We would get a really significant malice to their opinion with us if we didn't respond positively to this call, so we do join in the war. I don't think it's going to be too concerning, though, as the Emperor is not involved and they are rather far from us. So hopefully we won't actually be attacked by the enemy armies. Admittedly, though, it is a bit of a gamble and maybe not the smartest one to take right off the bat after getting a massive coalition against us. But on the bright side, it will mean that we will get truces with all of the countries we're currently fighting, so we can expand even more rapidly without having to worry about them joining a future coalition, at least until our truce expires. But that should hopefully be enough time that we will be able to solidify our position and hopefully get a nice wall of forts up to hold out until our allies support us. And that is basically going to be the plan from here out. At any rate, though, we immediately just continue our path of basically just making sure France and Austria stay on our side and fabricating claims on all of our neighbors. We are in a fairly good opportunity. The coalition against us isn't completely aligned. Unfortunately, we can't take Friesland over because they are a free city and the Emperor will protect them. But it appears that some of the coalition members are fighting one another, which may be very good for us, as we can probably just go in and declare war on one half of the coalition, take all of their money, maybe some of their lands, although that might not be the best idea, and ultimately just weaken the coalition before they're able to declare an aggressive war against us. Ultimately, though, I think it might be a good idea to just go after these countries. We do lose a bit of our land, however, since it didn't have forts in it. We can just take it back relatively quickly, and we move forward and just siege them out. Now, I'm not exactly sure what to get out of this war. It's possible we could just string a series of conquests across the empire. However, that could very well backfire with a coalition we just couldn't deal with. Ultimately, though, our allies are fighting Burgundy, and as you can see in the bottom left corner, doing a lot of damage to them. I don't want to actually take any provinces and maybe prompt a coalition war while our allies are out and about fighting other countries. When I make peace, hopefully they will all have their armies in their home country so they'll be ready to help us. Now, you see, I try to see what lands I can get, and it's actually a very large amount of land. Although I only imagine I can get so much land because they're not developed yet, and that'll increase in time. At any rate, though, with the war against Burgundy over, they've been forced to release Holland, so we're just going to go to war against Holland right now while they don't have any allies, and rush our army over. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to get out of the large war to our east. However, if we can just take all of the lands needed to form the Netherlands instead of all of this land, that would probably be a fairly good turnaround. And after all, we only went into that war to get that one country out of the coalition against us. So it might not even really suit us to take any provinces from them, as that would just add to a larger coalition, and instead just focus on the two provinces over to our west, which we can get from Holland right now. So we just continue to siege out Holland's capital. They're hiding their army beyond it where we can't actually go, just due to the blocking of movement by the fort. And unfortunately there is a rebellion in one of the countries we're occupying, but that isn't really our problem, and our allies went and took care of it anyway. And we managed to lose a battle, which is unfortunate, but we'll just create a new force. Friesland joined Holland, which is great news because we wouldn't have been able to declare war on Friesland without drawing in the Emperor. So this is fantastic. We'll just try to peace out with the countries to our east, as if we just take over these lands, we'll basically be in a position to form the Netherlands, which is at least the midterm goal. I'm still not going to make peace until France is out of their war, though, as long as I'm taking any provinces, which is the plan. And that's just because I want France to be completely and totally ready in the event of a coalition war. And they, as well as Austria, have defensive relations with me, so I can't really expect them to join any offensive wars, but it's almost certain they'll join a defensive war, so long as they're not busy in a war that's going poorly. We now begin the construction of that fort I said I was going to make in our eastern province, and we just continue waiting for the French to peace out. We do take over Friesland, though, just because we were running high on admin points and I didn't want to waste any. And there we go. It looks as though France is more or less out of their war, so we're probably in as good of a position as we're going to get to annex Holland and immediately start coring everything. Looks like there was a bit of an event in the Empire, but we're all good so far. And the coalition is now rather significant against us, but at the moment that doesn't seem to be too much trouble. And so long as our allies are in a good position, I'm fairly confident things will go at least moderately well. And we've definitely made quite a bit of progress since the beginning of the game. Ultimately, it may be a good idea to find another ally or two. You'll notice we are over our diplomatic relations limit. Oh, however, there we go. The coalition war has begun, and it is basically us and our two major allies, plus Hungary, against most of the HRE. I don't think we have too much to be concerned about. Our army is slightly larger, at least in cavalry. Theirs is larger in infantry. There's no real great way to get our army to our allies, so we're going to stay up in the north defending our own lands. Luckily, Austria and Hungary are sending their forces up and around to help us, which is fantastic news and helps quite a bit. We win the first battle, and we continue to press our advantage. Initially, this is going very well for us, and as soon as this war ends, we won't have to worry about the coalition until the peace treaty is over, in which case, once that happens, they'll all probably rejoin. But that means once we end this war, we will have quite a few years to build up, provided we win it, though, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So here we go. There are more battles just going on continuously across the frontier. It doesn't appear as though the French are doing all that much. However, Austria and Hungary's forces are doing plenty. We're fighting a series of battles, taking out whatever small armies we can. Unfortunately, it looks like we might be taking more than we can chew. The French seem to be doing a little bit of good, and it is just going fairly well. It's very lucky, or not lucky, but the fact that we can't have armies move past forts kind of limits the French ability to help us directly, but also limits the ability of our enemies to attack us, which is very good news. We are going to be a little conservative with our armies now and just try to sneak over here, and that was not actually very conservative at all. It looks like we're going to have to retreat immediately. Ultimately, we need Breda. That one province will let us form the Netherlands once we get to Admintech 10. I didn't mean to attack that province, but you're not able to stop your armies moving at the very last day anymore, and it worked out alright, so I guess there's nothing to complain about. The Austrians have come in force and are helping to clear out the local area, and we're moving our forces down to continue sieging out this country. I'm not entirely sure what I want from this war. Breda is the bare minimum. Hopefully we can get a bit more, maybe take all of the Belgian areas, although that might be pushing for a little much. The war is still going on quite fiercely, although the coalition forces have faced severe losses. They aren't out of the game yet, though, and that is definitely something to be concerned about. Luckily, though, the French have arrived in force and are doing a fairly good job mopping up. It looks as though the enemy armies are beginning to rebuild in significant force to our east. The French are fighting them, and it looks like they barely managed to win that. Ultimately, though, we just need to siege out at least one more province. There we go. I'm going to try to get as much as possible from this peace deal. However, we're in a fairly good spot where we are right now, and in the worst case, it wouldn't be terrible to end the war. You see, we are being offered to sue for peace, however, it's for a laughably bad deal. And so we managed to just continue with the sieges for another short little amount of time. There is another battle, one which does not go well for us, and that might be the thing that provokes us to make peace. However, so long as our allies are in the war, we don't have anything really to worry about. It looks as though one of our allies just made peace, though, which is very bad for us, and another battle has been lost. So it's probably around that time that we start thinking of getting out with what we can. And so there we go, we take 3 provinces, we just begin coring them. We're still allied to Austria and France, which is really the only important thing. We do appear to have lost Brandenburg, but we'll get them back eventually. A new coalition is forming, but it's really to the south of us, and the coalition borders both France and Austria. We can't upgrade from a duchy just yet, and being in the HRE means we might not ever be able to, but we did fairly well. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. There will be more.